News coming in early at the start of the NFL draft. Eagles extend the superstar wide receiver A.J. Brown 3 years, $96 million, making him the highest paid wide receiver in the National Football League. John, what's your first reaction?
First reaction is another great deal from the Eagles' perspective. And I know people are going to look at that and say highest paid receiver in the history of football. But they did the exact same thing they did with Devontae Smith. They did it very early. AJ's under contract through 2026 on his original deal, and they tack 3 years on the back end. So this $33 million a year doesn't kick in until 2027. And as we've been talking about, when guys like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, whenever they do sign, and they will sign at some point this year, so whether they get traded or their teams that drag their feet have to pay this so-called tax for waiting, those receivers are going to go past that number, and all of a sudden you're going to get to 2027, and there's going to be a bunch of other receivers, and that's how the league works. And AJ is going to look pretty darn good and pretty darn cost effective. So this is the Eagles, because A.J. Brown's obviously more accomplished and has been an all-pro, arguably a top 5 receiver in the league. So they have him under contract through 2029, and they have Devontae under contract through 2028. So all the angst about perhaps A.J. wanting to go in a different direction, we kind of said it all the time on Burst 365. A little bit of a misunderstood guy. He had no interest in leaving, has no issues with this organization, and it all gets done today.
Yep, and all the rumors are put to rest, as you just said it, John, through 2029. It's hard for my brain to even think about 2029 right now, but A.J. Brown is here until 2029, and that will keep him here for the remainder of really his prime. I mean, he's on a Hall of Fame trajectory. If you look at the first 4, I guess he's done 5 seasons now in the NFL. Massive guaranteed money, and like you said, it's going to look like a bargain come 2027, 2028, and 2029. But man, Howie Roseman is just at work, and this really should put the rumors to rest of, whether AJ will be gone or, signing Devontae could mean AJ's out. Howie likes this core. Clearly, he's invested in this core. He's extended Jalen. He's extended Devontae, AJ, Landon Dickerson, Jordan Mailata. The offense looks good for years to come.
Yeah, and Jeffrey Lurie again deserves a lot of credit for this, because one of the reasons those other organizations do drag their feet on big contracts is because they're worried about the future and the worst case scenario, which would obviously be some career threatening injury. And this is a very obviously dangerous game. It still remains so, even though the league tries to legislate out as much of that as possible. It's always a concern, but the Eagles understand you can't control that stuff. So you identify your core pieces and you roll the dice from that perspective. But long term, again, they're getting bargains, and these other teams are paying essentially more by waiting and being concerned. And that really can all be traced to ownership. Howie can only do what he does if Jeffrey Lurie allows it, and he does allow it.
It'll be interesting to see the cap numbers on this. I know his cap was getting ready to take a big spike because, as Howie normally does in the 2022 NFL draft, when he signed AJ, he pushed those cap numbers back. Now I'm sure he'll push them back even further, give probably a lot of that money up front, and it will look like a really good deal. But the deal is 3 years, $96 million, $84 million guaranteed. That's $32 million per year for a great player, and he deserves every penny. And it's gonna look really good. I think we can put to rest a wide receiver early in the draft, or is that still something they might do tonight?
No, they're not going to take a. I do think they could go wide receiver in day 3 if they could find a fit for the slot and maybe have a little bit of return ability as well, with kickoff returns uh, probably being more relevant this season than they have been in the past few seasons with the rule changes. So you might see one in day 3, but obviously some of that thoughts about Brian Thomas Jr., even if he were to drop or something of that nature, I think you could put those to rest. Um, and yeah, with AJ, you're right about those cap numbers. Remember, so Howie will adjust that. So he'll get through now the contract itself, the original contract, the extension runs through 2029, plus you'll have void years on top of it. So that will adjust the cap numbers throughout. And when they do file the contract, you're going to see those cap numbers are much more palatable moving forward.
Yep, looks good for the Eagles. John, we'll be back live as obviously the NFL draft is kicking off. It's a crazy time for Howie to make a move like this. But as I mentioned, just 2 years ago at the NFL draft, the trade was announced to bring A.J. Brown to Philadelphia. Now here we are 2 drafts later, and they just extended him through 2029. Safe to say that deal is out with A.J. in Philadelphia. John, thanks for joining. Please get back to work down there at the NovaCare. I'm sure it's a crazy scene after a move like this breaks, and we'll see what the Eagles end up doing in the first round of the NFL draft.
Yeah, I should have mentioned real quick before I leave, Xander. You know, I've been saying it for a while. AJ's the best pure football player on the Eagles, and
yep, you've been saying that for years, Mac.
Yeah, and they didn't want to move on from AJ Brown, so I'm glad we can finally put those rumors to rest, which honestly started from a throwaway poll at a sports radio station. There was never any credibility to them, and now the Eagles kind of spiking the football with this extension.
Yeah, it's almost like Howie hears the talk, listens to it, embraces it, and then says "F you" and shuts it down in the best way possible by giving making him the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, which probably won't last long, but for right now, and say that. Pretty good stuff by the Eagles front office, pretty good stuff from Howie Roseman, and pretty good stuff for A.J. Brown and really this whole offense. I'll make a prediction right now, Johnny Mac. I think they're going to go offensive line tonight. They got all the weapons. They got them all extended and secured. They got the left side of the line under contract. I think they're going to make a move to bolster that line tonight.
Yeah, it's never a bad bet to go offensive line with the Eagles in the first round. I do think cornerback is involved as well. So I do think they have a core group of players that they're looking at, and probably 2 offensive linemen, 2 corners, and a lot of it depends on what everybody else does. So, how the draft board falls will probably tell the tale there.
All right, Johnny Mac. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Xander.
That's Johnny Mac live from NovaCare Complex. What a deal, guys. I mean, A.J. Brown, $96 million. He's going to stay in Philadelphia. Everybody's commenting, what will Cilio say? Cilio will be live later tonight before the Eagles make their selection, and he'll be live for an extended period of time after that selection. I'm sure the first thing he'll be hitting on tonight is the A.J. Brown rumors, is the A.J. Brown extension. And really quieted Cilio down. I hate to say it, Dan, if you're listening. Your predictions have not come true in terms of AJ being moved on. Perhaps he made a stink, but he got his money, and he is here to stay. So we will be hearing a lot about AJ Brown for the years to come. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Like I mentioned just a second ago, Dan will be live at around, I'm going to predict around 9:30, depending on when the Eagles pick or if they move up and shake and bake, which Howie could do. I mean, he already made one big move tonight. Never going to count Howie out. But we'll be live for the Eagles pick, after the Eagles pick, and then later this evening, we'll get a full breakdown from John McMullen on whatever way the Eagles go in the first round. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We'll keep you covered on Eagles wall-to-wall all through the offseason, all through training camp, all leading up to the now much anticipated 2024 football season. Thanks, everybody.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Mess & Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa & Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.